Jarvis Landry, the free agent wide receiver, confirmed he's no longer a free agent.
Jarvis Landry is headed back home. He is expected to sign with the Saints on a one-year deal that I am told is worth up to $6 million.
There's a lot of information that we got that pertains to the NFC South today. One being a sneaky good trade that was made between the Atlanta Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders, and the other being the fact that the New Orleans Saints signed a 5-time Pro Bowl wide receiver today. So before we get to the content, we're giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel on May 15th. In addition to that, we're going to start live streaming on twitch.tv/TF Mikerophone. And now that we got all of that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Let's begin this content in the order that which we got the information, starting with the Atlanta Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Atlanta Falcons have had themselves one of the most interesting off seasons. There's an alternate dimension where the Cleveland Browns didn't decide to offer Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $239 million contract, and Deshaun Watson inevitably chooses the Atlanta Falcons. Unfortunately, that isn't necessarily the case. What ended up happening is Watson chooses the Browns. Matt Ryan gets kind of irked by the fact that the Atlanta Falcons decided to pursue another quarterback that wasn't him, and the Falcons trade Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts. As a result of that, the Atlanta Falcons took a very interesting approach to fixing their quarterback situation. They decided to make Marcus Mariota their starting QB and drafted Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati, one of my personal favorite quarterback prospects in the 2022 NFL draft. But in addition to this, prior to all of that occurring, the Atlanta Falcons lost one of their biggest weapons in Calvin Ridley, as Calvin Ridley has been suspended for the entire season for gambling on a Atlanta Falcons game. Now, whether the punishment was too extreme or not is a different conversation for a different day, but honestly, I don't think it was too extreme. We know how fair and consistent the NFL has been with the punishments that they give to players, but as a result, there is a gaping hole at the wide receiver position. Sure, the Falcons do have Cordero Patterson coming back as a versatile weapon as the wide back, similarly to what Deebo Samuel plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Only Cordero Patterson has been a journeyman for his entire career, and I'm sure he's just happy to be utilized as much as he's being utilized recently. In addition to this, in the 2021 NFL draft, the Atlanta Falcons drafted one of the most versatile tight ends we've ever seen in NFL history. As a matter of fact, Kyle Pitts lined up out wide on 30% of his snaps in 2021. This man is a matchup nightmare, and the Atlanta Falcons are all about mismatches. And you could tell based off of their first round pick this year. They drafted Drake London with the 8th overall pick in the NFL draft. This man is 6'4" and 220 pounds. So the Atlanta Falcons offense is going to look very fascinating because there's so many mismatches on this offense, and especially in zone running schemes, I am excited to see how this ends up working out. I mean, you have a wide back at the halfback position, you have a 6'4" wide receiver, you have Kyle Pitts, who's a tight end / wide receiver, you have Marcus Mariota, who's a scrambling QB. Things are looking good if you're the Atlanta Falcons, but despite that, this is still a rebuilding team. On top of that, this is a rebuilding team in the same division as a team that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And as a result of the fact that they are rebuilding, clearly they'll take on a flyer on any type of talent that they could get, which is why they made this trade with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, if you guys remember, I think I say this at least once every 2 to 3 videos, whenever a brand new front office comes in, they'll usually clean house, especially if there's players that they aren't necessarily invested in. The player that Las Vegas Raiders fans were invested in over the John Gruden, Mike Mayock era was a 3rd round pick in the 2020 NFL draft by the name of Bryan Edwards. Now, Edwards had a pedestrian first season, didn't get on the field a good amount of times, to be honest, played in 12 games, started in 3 games, was targeted 15 times, times, and as a result only had 193 receiving yards. This past season, we saw a modest increase in his production. He got targeted 59 times, he played in 16 games, and as a result, we saw him get 571 receiving yards. The man is 23 years old, and for the most part, you could make the argument that coming into this season, you may see a little bit of a breakout. I mean, after all, the Las Vegas Raiders did trade for Davante Adams. So you have Davante Adams, you have Darren Waller, you have Hunter Renfrow, you have a brand new head coach in Josh McDaniels. There should be some good opportunities for Bryan Edwards to thrive in this offense. What I'm assuming is there's something that the Las Vegas Raiders front office saw that made them think, okay, we're not that invested in the development of Bryan Edwards. We might as well trade him for a 5th round pick and trade him to a team that would be invested in his development. And that's exactly what happened, because according to Adam Schefter, the Las Vegas Raiders have traded wide receiver Bryan Edwards and a 7th round pick to Atlanta in exchange for the Falcons 2023 5th round pick per source. Now, this is a great move for the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, they're in a situation where they just need to take as many shots at a wide receiver as humanly possible. Just being straightforward with you guys. When you have Calvin Ridley out, you drafted Drake London, and who knows how good he's going to be. You have a proven weapon in Kyle Pitts. It's a good idea to take a flyer on a boom or bust project type wide receiver that definitely, in my opinion, when Bryan Edwards was first drafted, I definitely thought he could develop into a star. He's 6'3", he has 9.5-inch hands. As a matter of fact, NFL actually ranked him as a player that will eventually be a plus starter. So honestly, not necessarily a player that is a star in today's league, but definitely a player that is worth investing in if you have the time and resources to invest in him. Obviously, there's not enough targets to go around at this point if you're on the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr has Darren Waller, he has Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow eventually broke out. So it just doesn't make sense for him to stick around, and I think the Raiders are actually doing Bryan Edwards a huge favor. For all you know, the Atlanta Falcons end up developing him into a stud, but at the very worst, when you're devoid of wide receiver depth, this is the type of move that you need to make. But another team that made a significant move today in order to add another wide receiver to their wide receiver room is the New Orleans Saints. Now, entering this offseason, the New Orleans Saints had the worst wide receiver room. I mean, obviously, Saints fans aren't really thinking of Michael Thomas primarily because he didn't play last season, but if you were watching Saints games last year while Michael Thomas was out the entire season, it was so rough to watch. This team had no true number one wide receiver. And then entering the offseason, Michael Thomas starts tweeting out that he is excited to come back. In addition to this, the New Orleans Saints traded up to the 11th overall pick to draft Chris Olave out of Ohio State University. And now it seems like they got him a mentor, because according to Ari Meirov, but first reported by Jordan Schultz, the New Orleans Saints are finalizing a deal to bring wide receiver Jarvis Juice Landry to the New Orleans Saints per the Schultz report. He's coming home. So for those of you guys that don't know, Jarvis Landry went to LSU conveniently at the exact same time that Tyrann Mathieu went to LSU. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, and honestly, I am buying up all the Jameis Winston stock at this point. I mean, you have a man that has a rocket of an arm. If he's placed in the right scheme and the New Orleans Saints are able to utilize all of their weapons to their fullest potential, then who knows how prolific Jameis Winston can be. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but if you're the New Orleans Saints, you guys quietly built a really strong team to go into the season with. There's just a lot of question marks in regards to how Dennis Allen's going to do in his first year as a head coach. How good is Trevor Penning going to be as he's filling in for Teron Armstead, who was the best left tackle in free agency and the best overall free agent? A huge blow for the New Orleans Saints at that. What's going to be the fate of Alvin Kamara? But once you get past that point, man, just looking at this team, it looks incredibly promising. This team is filled with proven studs, like Ryan Ramczyk is still there, Alvin Kamara is still there. Jameis Winston was really freaking good in the limited time that we saw him last year. A lot of people don't pay attention to this because he's only played 7 games before going down with injury, but prior to those 7 games, Jameis threw 14 touchdowns to 3 interceptions while having Marquez Callaway as his top wide receiving option. And I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for that. But then you go to the defensive side of the ball, and they have Tyrann Mathieu, they have Marcus May, they have Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Davenport, Demario Davis, Jordan Cameron. This is a team that could legitimately give a lot of teams trouble well in not only their own division, but in every single game that they play. I wouldn't be surprised if the New Orleans Saints shocked people and made a deep run in this year's playoffs. At the same time, if some things don't go their way, obviously I wouldn't be surprised if they miss the playoffs. They're one of the biggest boom or bust teams in the entire NFL. But judging based off of the small sample size I saw from Jameis Winston last year, albeit he had a different head coach last year, and the additions that the Saints made this offseason, I feel like they're in a great situation. Even if this year ends up being a gigantic bust, at least you're in a situation where next year you could potentially draft your quarterback of the future in one of the deepest quarterback draft classes that we've ever seen. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan or a New Orleans Saints fan. What do you guys think about these moves that were made today? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.